Up or down? The end up or me up? Up.
In a cross-plank boat, you can't just drop the keel and put in a new one. A fore and aft plank boat, you can drop the garboards, take the floor timbers off, drop the keel, put a new one in, and then put a new garboard in. But this boat has no garboards. They're all the ends of all the cross planks. The keel and the keelson make up the centerline backbone of the boat. And those are the two biggest timbers. That also represents the biggest dollar figure in the scope of the restoration when you're considering how much you have to replace or repair. When you're touching the keel, you're touching gold.
So the keelson weighs about 6,000 pounds. So handling these timbers is quite difficult. And so we have hydraulic jacks, obviously forklifts, come-alongs, chain falls, all these things to safely roll these timbers from side to side, upside down, and then once they're all together, to stand them up underneath the boat and position them appropriately.
This keelson timber, we had an enormous amount of material that needed to be removed, and we couldn't do it because it was too large for anybody in the area's saws. You know, all the sawyers in the area, nobody could touch it. So we ended up having to do it ourselves, which it took us the better part of a week for me and Stephen. We started off by kerfing it with, we would take a chainsaw blade and make some cuts about 4 inches apart or so and just knock those pieces off with a sledgehammer. And then we had to make our cuts. We have some 6-inch circular saws. So we we lined it out where it's gonna be, trying to avoid all the sapwood, trying to avoid all the rot. We had to flip it over and cut those again, and hopefully they line up. And I was able to slide a Sawzall blade up in between the two and finish that cut because there was still 2 inches left in the middle. After we got it to rectangular shape, we brought it in and we cut the first scarf in it. Then we waited a few weeks for the next piece of keelson to come.
To complete the centerline timbers, ultimately they're made up of a number of different pieces. It's never just one chunk of wood. So we had earlier on had, you know, the first parts of that to work on, and in that case it was the keelson, which arrived earlier on. Most of it anyway. There still needed to be another section of it for the length of this boat. Getting that, as well as getting all the parts to the keel, which in this case are 3 different parts, took some time.
When we cut the scarf to both keelsons outside the boat, we put both pieces of the keelson inside the boat. We joined the scarf together We drilled all the bolt holes, right, for the bolts, for the scarf. We bedded it with 5200.
Yeah, Jimmy did those on the threading machine.
And that 5200 is the regular curing, so it takes about 7 days to cure. So we waited for that to cure, and while we were waiting for that to cure, we went ahead and cut the scarves in for the keel.
We had a little bit of a challenge with the main part of the keel. We were hoping to get it in one long shot, and we had to do a few scarves to get that all staggered properly.
We cut, we cut a series of scarves. We have one piece in the middle, which is double scarfed going up, and then two that come in from the end, just because we're trying to avoid the thin part of the scarf where the gyro is going to go. Two of them are 21 feet, one of them's 26 feet, and they have to be relatively free of sapwood. They have to be relatively free of knots. Actually, this piece right here had probably a 10-degree twist and turn in it. We had to steam that out of it. In the scarf, we're putting 5200. Each scarf has 10 3/4-inch bolts, and they're also, each scarf is also going to have the keelson bolts, which are 1 inch, 2 of those in each scarf on the keel.
So this will line up. Any discrepancy, I would call this boss, because that's the top of the keel that we bolt to. This, it can be anywhere. That's the top of the gripe pattern that you use to do your half breadth. And what happens is when you hold it in here on center, you see it's got to have a little more taken off.
Yep.
This is the lofting that we've taken from measuring the Coastal Queen. This particular segment of it is the aft end of the keel and keelson. Once you have this oriented fore and aft, that's the end.
Okay.
And that's the angle and that's the cut.
All right. We want to save a couple inches.
I would.
Okay.
So the process is to draw the boat full size from information that we glean from the original shape of the boat. With the measurements we take off of the boat, we can draw it full size, and then we can make patterns, and then we translate the shape of the individual timber to the stock or whatever we're making the timber out of. In the case of the keel, it's a big tree.
Here, let's put these shackles away. We are setting up to take the weight off of this keelson so we can turn it over 90 degrees. And it weighs about 2.5 tons, so we're gonna need to ease it over so it doesn't disrupt the cradle or anything else, so we have to do that in a slow process. We've got 2 of these cherry pickers and 1 forklift to do that all with, and we're hoping it works out. Picked in 3 points and strapped in 3 points. The straps are pulling it over, and the cherry pickers are going to keep it from slamming. How are we doing? Any clicks? Can you get a click? Let's just keep it going until it goes over. It's almost there. Don't help. Get that out of your hand. Corey, be afraid, please. Be afraid. Stop clicking. Let's let down on the cranes.
1, 2, 3.
The reason we had to pull it over on its side is we need access to, we're going to need access to both of the bottom corners, which is right here. You can see the beginning of the line here. That's about where our bevels are going to go. When we start at the front of the boat here, the angle of the planking is about like this. Toward the middle of the boat, it'll eventually drop to almost flat. And then back at the back of the boat, it goes back up to go into the horn timber. Back when we were disassembling the boat, Clark made these little tick sticks here. And you can see apex on keelson and apex on keel, rabbet on keel, bearding line from the bottom of the keelson. All this has to do with the rabbet. And so we took measurements from the old keel. So at 8 feet, bearding line from the bottom of the keelson is basically at 8 feet. That's my line. It just makes it so much easier rather than writing down, 300 little measurements that are going to get lost somewhere. We've got these little tick sticks and they're all joined together, and basically these are how I'm going to build the rabbet. I already did, you can see on the keel proper that I pretty much already did that. So when that joins up to this, the two bevels are going to give us a 90-degree angle, and that's where our planking gets socketed into.
At this point, for all intents and purposes, we are working on the AG Price. We're not working on Coastal Queen. We're working on things that are from the 20s. A lot of the bottom planking had been addressed over the years, but not the centerline timbers, not the keel, not the keelson, and not these major stringers that we're dealing with now. Those are original to the boat. So we're very much dealing with the original boat rather than the yacht that it became later on in life.